Welcome back, Freelance Business Week. How I know that you are enjoying this week. Today, we have Janifer Wheeler back. You saw her on the panel yesterday, which was phenomenal. Now, today, she is going to be discussing a getting started guide to diversity and inclusiveness. I am not going to hold it up because I have been waiting since she got booked to hear Jennifer's speech. So I am turning it over. Have a good, round of applause, even from the virtual world, for Janifer Wheeler.
Thank you so much, Michaela. It is truly my pleasure to be here with you today. And gosh, the panel was amazing. So if you missed it, please watch the replay because it was super juicy with a lot of really smart people who have expertise in this area. So it's super fun for me to learn from them as well as contribute. So I'm Janifer Wheeler. I'm the Joyful Badass, and I work with small businesses who want to create diversity and inclusion strategy. And especially for those businesses who cannot afford or do not have the budget for a full-time person or a department. So not to dwell on me, let's jump right into our presentation. Okay. So this is a getting started guide for solopreneurs and small businesses, and I'm just jumping right in. So you may see this slide and say, small business owner, diversity and inclusion, what? Yes. There is a role for small businesses and solopreneurs to play in the area of diversity and inclusion. And one of the reasons is because there are a lot of benefits of workplace diversity. So as this slide shows, there are a variety of different perspectives when you are creating a more diverse workplace. There's increased creativity, profits, better decision-making, higher employee engagement, reduced employee turnover, and that is absolutely a cost savings. So if you're reducing costs and increasing profits, that's always a good place to be when you are a business owner. It improves your company's reputation. It improves your hiring results and gives you a deeper pipeline from which to hire from. And then ultimately there's innovation and problem solving. So diversity and inclusion really is beneficial for everyone, in addition to the social, moral, and maybe personal feelings that you have around diversity and inclusion. So come on, there we go. All right, so in this slide that I found through I Follow the Leader Consulting, the business case for diversity, these are just some statistics. So we know that there are benefits, but if you kind of look through this slide, and I realize the font is small, so if you can't see it super well, I do apologize and could send it to you. But if we think about adding diversity, especially now we have more millennials in the workforce, and soon we'll have more Gen Z folks in the workforce, and they are more diverse, 16% more diverse than baby boomers, and they are expecting diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. So that's what we will focus on today in our chat. But, you know, people do look at your company for diversity in order to decide if they want to work there. They may look at your website before they even apply. So it's important to include diversity in your visuals and be true. We'll talk through this, but you really want to be committed and true with your intentions. So innovation improves 19% higher revenues with diverse management. We know that the workforce is growing and it's becoming more diverse, so we have to adapt for demographic shifts. Of course, we mentioned millennials. By 2025, in just less than 5 years, 75% of the global workforce will be made of millennials. And then, of course, a business case for diversity is harassment. 45% of U.S. workers have been harassed or discriminated against in the past 12 months, which is a disturbing statistic in my opinion. But when we have, back to innovation, we look at two-dimensional diversity, 45% more likely to report they had captured a larger portion of their market, and 70% more likely to have captured a new market. And then, of course, when you have women in your C-suite, then your returns are 34% greater. So diverse companies really do have a financial benefit. And we're going to talk about how you can include more diversity in your own organization, no matter how many people you have, if it's just you or if you have a handful. So what is diversity and what is inclusion? So when we talk about diversity, we're talking about the people, the differences and similarities among the human beings in your organization. These human beings bring multiple perspectives and ways of doing things informed by diverse histories, cultures, and experiences. And so we also think about inclusion. So that's more about the organization. It's how your organization configures opportunity. So there's an aspect of equality there as well. Interaction, communication, and decision-making to utilize the potential of diversity. And inclusion makes diversity work. It leverages the resources. It facilitates employee engagement. And then we go just a step deeper and think about how diversity and inclusion are about the people and the processes. Then you have equity, where you are constantly and consistently recognizing and redistributing power. And ultimately, those three things together bring a sense of belonging. And belonging is really what you want your folks to feel. So an organization that engages the full potential of the individual, where innovation is thriving, views and beliefs and values are integrated, that gives people a sense of belonging, and that truly, truly up-levels your employee engagement. Engaged employees are more productive. More productivity equates to more profitability. So we also want to make sure that we are talking about underrepresented groups. So underrepresented groups are women. They are Black, Indigenous people of color. They're veterans. They may have religious affiliations, perhaps disabilities. They may be immigrants. They may be members of the LGBTQIA community, or they may be immigrants. So when we talk about underrepresented groups, we also want to address the issues and problems that underrepresented groups experience. Work and personal life, this is not something that is easily avoided. You know, we talk about diversity, you've got your, I call it public diversity. Like when you look at me, you can see I'm a female, you can see that I'm white. You know, you can see I'm short too if I was able to stand up on this presentation. So, you know, there's just some things that I have that you can obviously see. Other aspects of our personal diversity are also kind of public. And then you have that more private diversity, the things that you don't know unless I tell you or share that with you. So we have to always be mindful that what we see isn't always what meets the eye in a way, right? There's more to a person than just what's on the outside. So when we talk about folks in underrepresented groups, they face obstacles and issues. So systemic racism, this is racism that is embedded in so many institutions and practices, it seems normal. It almost seems normal to everyone, like, oh, this is just the way it is. But it does exist. It is a thing. And part of the element of white privilege. And these are opportunities and advantages due to white skin. It is a real thing. And so these two things lead us also into unconscious bias, which is really when your brain fills in missing information with stereotypes. Every single person has unconscious bias. So when we say unconscious bias, it's not meant to be derogatory, like it's something that you can truly control. It's something that you have to build awareness around and become knowledgeable of your own self, your own biases, and how you are using those consciously or unconsciously to make decisions. So basically what happens in unconscious bias is that you are missing information about a situation or a scenario or a person or whatever is happening. And so your brain is digging around for that piece of information. Oh, something's missing. Let me find something about this that I'm aware of. And so it plugs it in with a stereotypical piece of information. So I like to use the analogy of Jurassic Park. In Jurassic Park, they found the DNA of dinosaurs, which they were able to replicate, but they were missing one strand, and they plugged it in with frog DNA. And if you've seen Jurassic Park, we all know what happened there. So unconscious bias, not good, not necessarily something we can always mitigate, but we have to begin to manage it and create self-awareness. And then unconscious bias can also lead us to microaggressions, which are statements or actions that are subtle, indirect, or unintentional, but reinforce stereotypes. And please note that even a seemingly positive stereotype is actually a negative stereotype. So your culture is your brand. No matter how big or small your organization is, your culture is truly your brand. So that's what we are going to focus on as we move through the remainder of the presentation. I developed a model called continuous cultural improvement. And in this model, we look at your culture, we assess the culture, what is happening, gather some baseline data, and from that data, we identify gaps. So that's where we look at this data and we say, wow, where's the disconnect between what we want and where we are? Like, there's a gap here. How do we fill the gap? How do we create a plan that aligns with our organizational goals, our mission, our vision, our values, and any existing D&I initiatives that you may already have in place or are planning for? The next step is strategic interventions. That's where we take those gaps and we say, okay, this is how we want to fill them. Here's our timeline. Here are our goals. Here are our measurements, the training and support that we need, and additionally resources. And then as we go further, you encounter the implementation process, and then the evaluation process, and then you report your progress. So today we are going to focus more on steps 1 through 3 and just kind of share with you some ways that you can go ahead and take a look at your culture or begin thinking about your culture. Because another huge aspect of diversity is inclusion as we engage in globalization, right? We especially now when things are so virtual, it's easier to access people around the world. It is easier to partner and engage with people like all across the world. So whether or not you have the ultimate dream of having this amazing global business, we still have global connections no matter where we are. And it's important to develop your strategy or your plan for how you want to engage with your global audiences and with both and your local audiences. So I mentioned continuous cultural improvement, and this originated from my experience as a director of curriculum, instruction, and assessment for a school district. We did have gaps that the state identified to us, and as a result, I was put into the role of the continuous school improvement director and learned a lot about how to look at what you're doing and make gradual changes that will actually stick. So it's less about let's hurry and find a solution that takes care of everything in the moment, and rather a way of looking at it over time, taking steps to change things. Change is a big deal. Change is not easy for everyone. And so this model helps you make these changes as you need to in order to make them permanent and lasting. You know, I think all of us have been in situations where it was a quick fix or a Band-Aid or this program is going to fix everything or this software. And that's not really what happens because we haven't done the work of truly connecting with the humans. Okay, I cannot stress enough that everything regarding this presentation and everything that I believe around diversity, equity, inclusiveness, and belonging is about people. The heart of the matter, it's people. Our hearts and the hearts of those who work with us and for us. So when we look at continuous cultural improvement, we will evaluate core values, our communication, our collaborations, the camaraderie within our employees, celebrations, consistency, community, commitment to L&D, which is learning and development, caring, connection, competency, and company chronicles. So the ones we will focus on today are core values, communication, and collaborations. So the first step that we mentioned in the continuous cultural improvement kind of steps is assess. So take a culture audit. And we're going to do a mini culture audit as we go through the rest of this presentation. So we'll focus today on your core values, communication, and collaborations, because as a solopreneur, as a freelancer, as a small business owner, these are really important. And I think these three, if you pull these three out, these are really, I don't want to say easy, but these are definitely things that you can take a look at as a small business owner or a freelancer and say, okay, do I have core values for my business? How am I communicating? And what kind of collaborations am I participating in? Because what we can see from this slide is that some things are on the surface, but other things are below the surface. And those are the things that we also want to look at. We want to look at both, those above and those below. So first we look at core values. What are the core values of your organization? Do you have them? Are they published? Are they posted? Are they on your website? Do you share these with folks? Or is this part of your marketing, part of your sales calls, part of your hiring? Your core values are what drive absolutely everything about your business. And so when we think of it, we want to say that these are the behaviors that never change. They drive everything that you do. They should, and hopefully do, reflect a commitment to diverse, equitable, and inclusive culture. They are the cultural elements of your business. This is how you distinguish yourself from other people. This is how you make sure that in the eyes of your employees, customers, and other stakeholders that you are walking the walk and talking the talk. So values should be actionable, distinctive, and linked to results. Explain these to people. Make sure that you've provided behavioral guidelines. What does this look like? How do your values connect to behaviors and performance in your organization? So core values, if you don't have core values, then I highly encourage you to spend some time thinking about what your core business values are. And then look at our communication. So as you can see here, this lady is not feeling very included. And yesterday on the panel, this is, I refer to this regarding networking, because often if I go to mixed networking where there's also men and it's not exclusively women, this is sometimes how women, are seen or perceived, and it's hard to kind of break in and perhaps have our voice heard. So when you're thinking about your own communication with your business, clear, frequent, formal, informal, communication that reflects transparency, inclusive language, and respect. Your meetings are productive and purposeful. Your marketing content reflects diversity and inclusivity, both in writing and visually. Look at your job descriptions and postings. Make sure you're communicating that you are a diverse and inclusive environment. Your employee handbooks, your policies, your procedures, all of these need to reflect your commitment to diversity and inclusion. Words matter, actions amplify them. So as you think about diversity and inclusion, you will hear me say this repeatedly. It needs to be done with fidelity. You have to believe in it. It has to be more than checking a box or just creating a plan because you're trying to achieve some other goal. It's crucial that you walk the walk and talk the talk. And when you think about hiring, if you have established your core values and you're communicating those, and you create the idea that if someone comes to work for you, that they're coming into an inclusive, diverse, equitable environment that creates a sense of belonging, and that's not actually what they find when they get there, that is not the best way to start the first few days of a new job feeling like you've been lied to. So it's really important that you carry over whatever you are communicating into action, into real life. The next thing we want to look at is collaborations. And I think this one is especially relative for small business owners, freelancers, solopreneurs, because this is where you are exploring potential partnerships. You are utilizing vendors. So I used the word supply chain, which we may have heard a lot about recently in COVID and how the different PPE was, delivered and things like that. But that's where you get what you need, right? Is it if you're shopping t-shirts or graphic designers, are you looking beyond just the people you know? Are you expanding and looking for people who are not necessarily like you and can bring something different to that collaboration? Consultants, look at your consultants, look at your coaches, look at where you network and who's there, and business organizations that you may have membership in. These are important. These help you expand, because all too often when we're a freelancer or a solopreneur, we are creating our businesses in somewhat of a vacuum, right? We're usually alone. We have to seek out collaborators. We have to look for people who can talk with us and mastermind and give us feedback. So even if you don't have people within your own organization, you don't have employees, you still need support. You still need those relationships. And so I highly encourage you to reach beyond the people that you might normally reach out to and start building a more diverse pipeline of collaborators. Now, we talked about assessing, and now we want to identify the gaps. So as we've walked through these last 3 slides and we've talked about where gaps might be, begin to think about where you want to focus. And I'm going to focus on collaborations because this is a freelancers conference. So as we talk about identifying gaps, begin to think about, as we said, who's serving you, who's working with you in these various capacities. And if you, kind of begin to do a little mini culture audit and say, wow, in terms of my, consultants, every consultant I have ever used is, a white woman in my local area, in my network. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I encourage you to reach beyond, because that's still the same or similar thought process and viewpoint and similar experiences. You are not getting kind of a lot of new information, if you will. So we identify the gaps. We say, wow, I don't have a diverse network of partnerships, supply chains, consultants, coaches, networking, or business organizations. I look around and I say, wow, it's too similar, right? Because it doesn't matter. Diversity is more than, race and gender. So we're not just talking about those 2 things. Look beyond and just, look at what you're doing and who you interact with, who you're hiring to do various things for you. So now that we've kind of got an idea about gaps, then we want to create a strategic intervention plan. So if we're thinking just about collaborative relationships, what interventions do we need, right? We need to expand our network. So that's my goal. I want to expand my network. I want to increase the diversity of my network by 25%. I want to focus on people who are in my industry so that I can learn more from them. When I became a certified diversity professional and began getting more into diversity and inclusion as the basis of my work, I thought, okay, I need access. I need to know. I need to understand. I need to build my awareness and not just assume that everything I've learned in this program is going to serve me. So I began to expand my network, look for D&I consultants, just doing work all over the world and learning from them and listening to them and reading their articles, sharing their information. So that's helped me continue to learn and grow in my field. And so I think that is just essential to continue learning and growing, especially in your passion areas, so in your business industry, so that you can know who's out there. I mean, I've heard people say, well, I would love to hire more diverse candidates, but I don't know where they are. Well, that just means you're lazy, in my opinion, because they are out there. They are on LinkedIn. They are out there. They are in colleges and universities around our country. So there's the ability to access. You just have to begin to reach out and be intentional and take action yourself. You can't just wait for people to come to you. So, strategic intervention. What do we want to do to expand our network? We know we need to expand our network. So we talk about who. Who do we want to follow and engage with groups? We can expand to groups and individuals and social media. We can attend events, although right now we're limited in where we can go. We can sponsor events. We can mentor or volunteer. So there's a lot of ways that you can get out and expand your network, especially now with all the opportunity for virtual events. And I've been very fortunate and have felt very fortunate in this pandemic to be able to meet up and connect with people from other parts of the world. I host webinars twice a month, and it's been so fantastic to see such a variety of people on the webinars. And now I'm linking up with them on LinkedIn, connecting with them in various social ways, and continuing to learn from them and hopefully share information that they find valuable. So where are these people? Well, they're on LinkedIn, as we said. They could be on Facebook. They could be on Twitter. They could be on Instagram. You could find them through meetups, because even though we're not meeting in person, a lot of meetup groups are still holding their virtual meetings. You can join or attend chamber events in your area. I'm here in the Austin area, and I'm a member of the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, and was planning to join some other chambers within the area, but then COVID hit, and I thought, well, I don't want to invest money into just virtual events. I know that sounds maybe not quite cool, but it's just kind of hard to, in this time period, right? You got to really be selective about where you're investing your funds and your energy. So once we can get back out in person, I definitely want to explore and join some additional chambers. I also subscribe to various newsletters of folks who do D&I work, who do HR work, who do mindfulness work, like things that I'm interested in, but also things that would help me to serve my customers and clients better. So newsletters, community newspapers, there's not as many newspapers as there used to be, but you get to decide why you're doing this based on your goals for your brand and your culture. So look for the who, look for new who's, and then where are these new who's, and why do you want to meet the new who's? And I promise you, I've been doing so much LinkedIn outreach, like just meeting people and reaching out to people. Hey, you want to chat? You want to talk? You want to meet? And in fact, it's led to some really great partnerships and some new people that I am just very grateful to know. And so honestly, you just don't know what you're missing out on until you start, filling in those gaps, right? I think it's so beautiful when we learn from each other, because even though we're different, we're also all humans, which means we still have a lot of the same feelings, a lot of the same emotions. Our experiences may be different, but those emotions are very much in common. And so another thing that I always recommend, because I am a former teacher, I do create training and workshops and curriculum for the D&I world, also team building. I am a huge advocate to continue learning. Keep learning. You cannot stop learning. And in the world of D&I, things change. Like, things are evolving. When D&I first became a thing, it was pretty much connected to equal opportunity laws. So some of the things that we are required to do by law did come out of affirmative action and other legislation. So there are some legal requirements around D&I that apply to you if you have 15 people or more. So that is definitely something that you would want to consult an HR consultant on, because you want to make sure you're also adhering to the law. So keep learning, read books, read articles, magazines, follow people that post a lot, that are subject matter experts around the areas of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Read fiction written by members of underrepresented groups. Over the last two weeks, I think, I've been reading a lot of fantastic fiction. And what has been so beautiful about it is it's like this amazing window into a culture or a community, and you learn within the confines of this beautiful stories that people are sharing and telling. You can feel that connection to those feelings, right? You can experience what they're feeling through their stories. And for me, that always creates a sense of empathy. And I connect back to times when I felt the feelings of the people in the stories. And I think that's where we really can create empathy, when we don't have the same life experiences, but we all have experiences that can generate and trigger particular emotions. So read books, read fiction, or listen. You can also do Audible. Take courses. I became a certified diversity professional through a program offered by the International Diversity Certification Organization. There are other places that offer D&I certifications. There are college courses that you could take. So educate yourself, really, is what I'm advocating. And then if you need to, hire a certified consultant, hire someone who can help you. And especially around HR matters, because there are some legalities, you want to be sure that you are hiring someone who is knowledgeable, who is certified, who can really help you and not inadvertently create a bigger problem. And I always encourage people to listen with empathy. Listen with empathy. Listen for those commonalities. Because I firmly believe that I have my own life experiences. I have things that have happened to me for various reasons, but definitely experiences as a female in male-dominated businesses and industries. And so when I think about those experiences, I think about how they made me feel. I felt humiliated. I felt demoralized. I felt like I was not valued. I felt like I was not important. I was not appreciated. When you find yourself training the person, you train the person and now they're promoted over you and they've become your boss, but the whole time you've been there, you've been training, that is very demeaning and demoralizing. And, I'm just going to say I'm old. So I remember back in the, 90s when I was entering the workforce, and, there were questions like, do you plan on getting pregnant? If your husband were to move, would you follow him? And those are no longer questions you can ask people, but because they're discriminatory. So I know I've been discriminated against. I know how it made me feel. So if I empathize with other people in other groups who have experienced the same thing, it's not the same level. But boy, if that's how bad I felt, and this is a level of 10,000 or a significantly increased level over what I was dealing with, then man, I got to do something. So for me, empathy inspires action, because now you understand how other people are feeling as a result of systemic racism, or not having privilege, or microaggressions, or unconscious bias, right? You have a better idea and you have a better understanding of what is happening there. So I also like to talk about joy. I really am a huge advocate of joyful workplaces. And it might seem slightly like, what? But I mean, I'm the joyful badass. So I got to tell you about joy before I let you go. And joy, I think, is huge, because joy is also, it's all about us. And this is part of, I think, developing empathy, developing, openness to other people, is because if you are joyful, there's not a lot of room for and anger and uncertainty and hatefulness. And I think sometimes that's another aspect of our lives that may be lacking, is that we don't have enough joy. We don't know what brings us joy. We're focused on happiness, but joy is really internal. Happiness is external. It comes from other circumstances. It is not It is created by other people. It is based on what other people are doing. Happiness is an extremely emotional response. It's temporary euphoria. It's inconsistent. But joy is from inside of you. It is your internal commitment. It is your foundation. It is what lights you up every day, what gets you out of bed, what gets you moving. And for me, my joy is in working with people who want to create strategies for D&I. I love to create courses. I love to create and workshops to present and teach. So that's why I created a business based on where I find joy. So as freelancers, especially and solopreneurs, because we're doing a lot of the work ourselves, I think knowing what brings you joy around your business is so beneficial, because for me anyway, knowing joy, knowing what I find joyful in my business, it helped me create a job description for my virtual assistant. So I worked through all these pieces. I'm like, okay, I need to delegate because this doesn't bring me joy. I don't find joy in scheduling and creating all my social media content. It's necessary, but it's not joyful for me. I'd rather be developing curriculum or sharing webinars. So look for the joy. Happiness is fleeting. Joy is really about you, who you are, what you're made of, about your passions, your intentions, your purpose, and subsequently your own personal values. I believe in joyful teams, that joyful teams create joyful workplaces, which then lead to joyful profits. I do offer team building, but I just think it's so important that people are feeling included and that gives them a sense of belonging. Acknowledging joy in the workplace is not something that many people do. And so yet another way for you to let yourself stand out from your competitors. I also have the Joyful Badass Academy. This is where I host all my training courses. So you're welcome to investigate that. And if anyone has any questions, Michaela, I am ready to pause right here and take any questions from the audience or any comments. So I basically wrapped up, and I can show the last slide, which is how to contact me. I am on LinkedIn, Janifer Gerard Wheeler. So please find me on LinkedIn. I love being connected with people on LinkedIn. So definitely feel free to reach out and join there. So questions, comments?
That was fantastic, Janifer. Like, that was such a wealth of knowledge, because I know nowadays people are wondering, what's my first step? What do I need to do? What direction do I need to go? And you just gave them a complete blueprint of what to do, what actions to take, how to go about it. I mean, like, mind blowing. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I'm so glad, because, that's also part of my mission and my personal values is to share my information with other people. I mean, obviously, you do want to get paid. We are not starting businesses because we want to just work for free.
Right.
But as someone who has received so much support, so much information and knowledge from other people, it is only right that I would give back and share in this way with other people, because this is a big topic. And it's also an extremely important topic, like hugely important.
Yes.
Because, as someone who really wants to embrace the concept of be the change, this is how I feel like I can participate in being the change. And so I encourage other people to do that as well. So if there's questions or anything that I can see the comments, but I don't know if you want to take questions or how you want to do it, Michaela. I know you're moderating, so.
You have several comments. One is by Emily. I've been wondering if the goal of integrating D&I would get easier as the younger generations come on board and bring the natural inclusive values. You was talking about that earlier.
Mm-hmm. I do think that's very much a possibility. I mean, I think about my own son, who's 22. So he's the Gen Z generation. And he has some very specific opinions about things that are happening in the world, and they're very inspiring. And to me as a mom, I'm like, yes, if I did one thing right, I have, taught him to be empathetic, to be frustrated and annoyed and want to take action when you see injustices. Like, we're all in this together. And so it makes me really happy when he comes or calls me or, shows up. He's like, Mom, did you see this? So he's paying attention too, right? But he's also paying attention. That's
Yes.
we've got to be mindful that millennials and Gen Zs live on the internet. Everything they do is connected to social media, to their devices. This is where they're getting information, which is good and bad. But they have constant access to information. So they are aware of what is happening in the world, like as it's happening. And we can have that same access, but these generations, like that's where they live, eat, sleep, and breathe. And so they are paying attention. And, when we moved to Austin and we moved here from right outside of Atlanta, Georgia, there was no real diversity in our schools. Like it was just black and white. That was really all there were really no other people for the most part. I mean, very, very, very sprinkled, but just not a lot of diversity. So we moved here and I started teaching at a school here in Austin. It's in Round Rock ISD, extremely diverse, amazingly diverse. It was one of those experiences that at the time was planting a seed for the work I do now, because I had such a wonderful time engaging, building relationships with families, learning about their culture, their experiences, how they got here. It was fantastic. Led me to teach English as a second language, learning from an immigrant. Anyway, I've just been so blessed, for lack of a better word, for all these things and people that I've been able to interact with that has helped me see things in a different perspective, which then has allowed me to parent my child with a different perspective. So I think it's important that if you take nothing away from this, please know that diversity and inclusion is more than race and gender. And that expanding your network is one of the best ways to get to help yourself become more aware and help yourself make the changes that you need to make to be more inclusive yourself, right? I don't think we all purposely try to be exclusive, but those unconscious biases, those things that we've just that our brains just pull up, we have to develop awareness to stop that.
I 100% agree. Like that's the one thing that my husband and I noticed when we first got to Austin was the diversity. And like it was so diverse. I remember being exposed to so much diversity when I first went to college, and I was amazed. And then it's almost like now being an adult getting to Austin, and that was one of the first things we noticed was people from all walks of life were here in Austin, and it was beautiful. It's still beautiful just to see. So I really appreciate Austin as a whole, just for its inclusiveness. Like it's just welcoming in so many times. It's welcoming, and of course, it's according to everybody's own experience. But for me, it's been super welcoming. The situations I've seen has been so opening, and people just embrace each other here.
I think also, I agree with you, and I think there's still work to be done. Right? There's still some, aspects of our Austin culture that are not being as addressed as fully as I might like them to be.
Right. Of course.
We're really involved in the local music community, and one of the things that I guess it's existed for a long time, but more light is being shown on it, is the lack of investment by the city of Austin in the Black music community. So there's still work. I mean, I think there's always work to be done. I mean, we are never going to be perfect. It is not possible, but we can always be committed to growing. I'm a huge advocate of a growth mindset. So growing, learning, and going beyond my own personal boundaries, that's how I got here, right? I mean, I was raised a white girl in the South, the deep, deep South. So y'all know what I got told. And you have to intentionally and purposely want to break out of that. And I think you have to be intentional. You have to say, this is not who I want to be. This is not who I am, regardless of what I've been told, regardless of my brain wants me to do. I'm strong enough to battle this, and I'm going to change.
That leads to the next comment from Shelly Ann, where she said, great insight, Janifer. You have to be intentional and purposeful with D&I. And that sums up exactly what you were just saying. Mm-hmm. We do have a question by Sam Pilark Jr. As you've entered into the diversity and inclusive space, what's one unexpected lesson you've learned?
Wow, one unexpected lesson. Sam, you would be asking me a question that's like going to stump me here for a minute. Like that's a good panel question for next time, Michaela. Like for our group,
right?
Gosh, what unexpected I've learned? I feel stumped, but let me think on that. What have I learned that's unexpected? Well, I guess one thing I have learned in the diversity inclusion space is that I got into diversity inclusion because of my own personal convictions, right? I want to, if I'm someone who receives the benefit of my white skin, then what can I do to lift other people up and bring them in front of, like, I don't even want to be in front. Like, I try never to speak for other people. And I would say that's a really good lesson that I've learned, is that not to speak for other people, but to step aside and give other people a platform to speak for themselves, right? So if you follow my Wheelhouse page, I post all kinds of stuff that other people have written and done. Like, you might wonder, like, what does this girl ever write articles about? And I do sometimes, but really I'm about lifting up other voices. Like, I mean, I'm not someone who has like a huge following. Like, I don't have millions of people to share your voice with necessarily, but I want to elevate that. So I think that's a huge and an unexpected and very beneficial lesson for me, is to understand that stepping into this space, there is, I guess really what I want to say to that is, I don't want to be one of those people who fall into that white savior complex kind of thought process. Like, I'm not trying to save anybody. I'm just trying to do what I can to make a difference so that other people have access, opportunity. I firmly believe that nothing is going to be taken from me because I am helping to lift other people up. Like, I don't even see how, like, I can't even wrap my head around how people use that as an excuse. Like, that's just such BS. So thank you for that question, Sam. You really made my brain work. And I would say that's a big lesson. I mean, I think it's important.
One thing Lisa Teller said is, as someone who wants to be part of the change that our world needs in regards to D&I, I am learning so much information from this presentation. I believe in D&I, but honestly didn't know the steps to take. And I feel like you've done such an amazing job doing that, Janifer. Like, you gave us so much information, so much knowledge, so much food for thought, that anybody listening to this broadcast, as well as the replays, like, this is something that people need to listen to if they really want to know their next steps. This is that broadcast. This is that talk people need to listen to, because, like you said, it's not that the knowledge is not out there. It's out there. There's no excuse in today's time to find it. So, and then having talks like these, just absolutely amazing. Right. Sam gave you another comment of, LinkedIn is definitely a great place to meet diverse people. Being purposeful and interacting and building a diverse network is important. It does take effort. It won't happen by osmosis.
No, and I think that's such a great comment, and so very true, which is why I, say, get out there. I mean, I will be very honest and say that, I did hire 3 different white coaches because I didn't know anybody else. I didn't have access to anybody else. I mean, these were the people who were presented to me. But now that I know what I know, I can do better. And the next time I need a coach, I will be more intentional about seeking out more diversity in my coaching because that will benefit me even more, right? It'll be a win-win for both. So I also try to look for like diversity in the things I need to purchase for my business, not just like coaches or consultants, but you know, if I need stickers or a t-shirt, who do I know who might know someone who does that? A minority-owned business, a female-owned business, and you know, LGBTQ. Like, how can I support other business owners who are in those other, I don't want to sound the wrong way, who are in other, you know, places and come from other experiences? That is beneficial to me. It's beneficial to them. I get to know them. Now I can refer them out. Like, that's a huge part of what I love to do, is getting to know people so that I can then refer them. So if you aren't quite sure, you know, who to approach, well, let me introduce you to a few people. I'll start you there with a few people that I know who can then help you expand into a larger, you know, deeper connections. And one thing I will say about LinkedIn, and I know our time is getting close. What I have discovered on LinkedIn, most people will accept your request. Make sure you've got a great profile and make sure you have a picture. Like, have a good profile. But I accept almost anyone because this is a business. This is not Facebook. This is not my personal life that I'm letting you into. This is my business life. And unless you give me a reason not to want you in my business life, like when I accept your connection and then you send me like weird messages, like you want to date me or something. Now that does happen on LinkedIn every now and then. I delete those. I block those people. But really, people do. I mean, that's why they're on LinkedIn. They're trying to make connections. They're building their network. They want to be connected with people who are doing amazing things. So reach out. I mean, all they're going to do is not accept your request. Like, all that's going to happen is that's going to sit there in your message box or your whatever that little section's called. It's just going to sit there. That's it.
That is so true. So true.
I mean, that's really the worst that's going to happen. They're just not going to accept you. Like, okay, move on.
Yes. And I love how you added belonging to the diversity, inclusive, and equity. You added the belonging. That's one of the things that Emily had comment on. And I thought that was amazing because ultimately that's what it is that everybody, no matter what your background is, no matter what walk of life you've come from, just wants to belong.
You just want to feel like you belong, like you matter. I mean,
exactly.
Like you matter. And I think it's so, it's integral to D&I that we make people feel like they matter. We don't just say, hey, you're diverse. Come on. Hey, we're going to let you sit at, you'll be at the table when we make decisions, and you'll get to speak at the table when we make decisions. But whatever you say, we don't really care. Like, you get to say it, but what you don't know is that we are not going to listen to you. Your opinion means nothing. We're just going to do all that lip service. And so then you do not, and you don't feel like you belong after that. Like, if I
like
could
you're the token piece.
Yeah. Or what, wherever you fit in that. Right. And so another thing I think is interesting in this particular conversation is that I see a lot of companies say, bring your best self to work, bring your true self to work, bring your whole self to work. And sometimes what they really mean is bring your piercings, bring your tattoos, bring your brown skin, bring your, LGBTQ-ness, bring your veterans, whatever it is, bring all that. But when we do your review, we're going to point out all these things about you that we don't like, that we want you to fix, that we want you to improve upon. You're too loud. You're not creating influential relationships, like whatever it is. So I find that such a disconnect, right? If you're saying bring your whole self, to me, that means that means I bring my moodiness. That means I bring my introvertedness. That means I bring my passion. That means I bring my expertise and experience. It brings, that I sometimes drop the F-bomb in the middle of something and I didn't mean to, but I did. And that's just what you're going to get with me. And so, and some of those things are like, yeah, you can change that because it's not socially cool. But really, what are you trying to say? We only want the outside of you to be whoever you are, but however you are made, whatever those qualities, characteristics, skills, gifts, and talents that you have, if we don't really like those, or, it doesn't fit with what we want, then we're going to ask you to fix that or change it. And that's not to say that people should not be growing, that they should not be, trying to be the best version of themselves. But if you're saying, bring your best self, and that's my best self, then why are you trying to change me?
And I 100% can relate to that. I'll never forget, being part of this project when I was in the military. And it was a big deal that was going on in the base, and my hair was natural.
Oh, what were you thinking?
And I remember them specifically getting somebody of color to come and talk to me and say, you need to either do something with your hair or wear a wig. Right. And it was not the best time, but yes.
And did you feel valued? Did you feel valued for who you are?
I felt like I couldn't be myself.
Did you feel like you belonged in that project? No. And so, so just to wrap that up, to say, when you are having conversations like this, where someone feels they are not valuable, they don't belong, they're not supposed to be here, like they have to be different and they have to change in order to fit your mold, the engagement of that person basically goes into the toilet. Like, who really wants to give you their all? Who really wants to stay up till midnight working on a presentation for you? Who really wants to give up XYZ to then help you with nobody? So that's the other thing that I think businesses and people just don't understand is, at some point you just get tired of it and it burns you out, and then you are either looking to go somewhere else, or you're just not making the contribution you were before. Then you're getting in trouble because you're not contributing. It's just a crazy cycle of potential ridiculousness. I've seen that in school, and I've seen, as a teacher, I've seen this, right? You have these stupid dress codes, even telling girls to keep their bra covered up is about boys. It's not even really particularly about girls and their ability to learn and grow in an environment, right? And there's all kinds of, we've seen, you can't graduate, you can't go across the stage because you have dreadlocks, or you can't do this because you have natural hair. I mean, or what like you're saying, like all these different things, and it's just stupid.
Agree.
So I'm gonna call it what it is: stupid and racist and demeaning and not necessary and not inclusive. And it's just, I don't like it.
Yes. And to wrap up, we got one more comment from Sam. Instead of focusing on being a culture fit, focus on being a culture add. Rather than boxing people in, give them the opportunity to truly be their unapologetic, authentic self.
1,000% in agreement. Thank you, Sam. That is spot on.
So thank you so much, Janifer, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for Freelance Business Week for joining us. We are continuing on. Now, remember, if you have not signed up or registered, get registered. You want to be registered for the 2020 Freelance Business Week. The site is 2020.freelancebusinessweek.com. Again, 2020.freelancebusinessweek.com. Our next talk is going to be with Abby Spindelman, Thriving Solo in a World Seemingly Made for Couples. That will be at 2 p.m. Central. That's 2 p.m. Central. If you enjoyed this talk, do not forget to give it an upvote, as well as reach out to Janifer, connect with her on LinkedIn and all of the other platforms she is with. I promise you will not regret it. All right. Thank you so much, Janifer. I really enjoyed you, and thank you for coming to educate us today. You have a great rest of your day. Bye.
You too.